Getting into medical school is not easy at all. However, surviving in medical school for 5 years is another challenge. Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new episode of M.I.N.O.R Talk. I'm Junle, your host for today. In this episode, I'm very grateful and honored to have Nelson, my senior, discuss the things he wished he knew before entering med school. So hi Nelson, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Junle, and also hi to all the audiences watching it today. My name is Nelson, and I'm a second-year medical student in the University of Science Malaysia. Back to you, Junle.
Nice to meet you, Nelson. Since you have experienced life as a medical student for 1 year and a half, what do you think about the difference between your expectation and reality studying in a medical school?
All right, I think expectation and reality, there's always a deviation when we start to enter medical school because what we expected at first and what the reality told us are totally different things. So I would like to share two expectation versus reality. Maybe the first one would be people always expect us to be, without a social life when we are a medical student. And I'll tell you why it is not true. And the second one is always people always expect us to memorize every single detail when we are in medical school. And I think that is impossible as well. So all right, going to the first one, it's people always say that medical students are like breeding medical knowledge. There's absolutely no time at all. But to be really, really honest, as long as you don't jeopardize your responsibilities as a medical student, and as long as you know your priority well, you will definitely know how to draw that line for your medical school tasks and also your personal life. And you will definitely have time to actually play sports and also do your hobbies once in a while and even throughout the week as well. Because I mean, that's what my friends are currently doing in University of Science Malaysia. And I think Junle is also one of the people who actually play a lot of frisbee as well. So the concept of we have no life is totally wrong in medical school. And I think one of my friends once told me that we are all human before we are medical students. So it is really important to know that definitely at times we do want to relieve stress. We do want to play sports and also do other things out of medical school as well. So don't expect us to be just studying 24/7 because that's not the truth. And the second thing is people always believe that or expect us to really memorize everything. But the entire concept of the world of medicine is constantly progressing. So there's no way for us to know every single detail in medical school. But rather, I think it is important for us to be systematic in reviewing the content that we have so that we can retain this medical knowledge in a way that we are able to use it lively in the future to treat our patients. I think that's more important than us not just memorizing every single detail. And that's just not feasible and it basically makes you more stressful. So I think, yeah, those are the expectations versus reality that you would possibly face when you are in medical school.
All right, thank you, Nelson, for your comprehensive explanation of comparing the expectation versus reality when studying in medical school. So now you are able to experience the true life as a medical student. Is there any preparation or things you wish you knew before entering medical school?
Oh wow. Things I wish I knew before entering medical school. Maybe the first one would be like, I think medical school, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So what do I mean by that? It's in medical school, it's really important for you to collaborate with other people. Try not to be self-centered because this is a place where you are going to be a doctor, you are going to work with, people from other healthcare professionals. It's basically a healthcare team that is trying to provide a patient-centered care. So what you want to be is to help each other, help your colleagues, help friends to move forward to be that compatible, that competent doctor that could provide the best patient-centered care together, in a healthcare team rather than you just being like a one-man show everything. So it's really important to remember this is not a sprint, this is not a competition, it is a long marathon. And in this marathon, it's important for you to find friends that you want to, you can rely on, that peer support that you can build upon. So I think that's one thing to remember. Or one thing that I wish I knew before entering medical school is the entire concept of teamwork in medical school is really important. And I think another thing that I would like to share about it's something called imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome is something that you feel like you are incompetent despite all your academic achievement, despite all your achievement in co-curriculum. So most often than not, you will realize that you were once a top student in your high school or in your college, but when you are in medical school, you are surrounded by people who are just equally smart. And that's when you feel like, hey, I might not be as smart as that person or someone else. But the whole concept of being in medical school and the whole concept of you being a medical student is that you want to be a competent doctor, you want to be a safe doctor. So why do we even bother about comparing ourselves with another people? So if you were to change back to the mindset that we just want to improve our own personal development, we want to be the best that we can be, and that will eventually help you to get rid of that imposter syndrome, because the entire concept of imposter syndrome come across just because you are trying to compare yourself with other people. But if you're just focused on your own personal development, you can eventually get out from that imposter syndrome. And I think thirdly is definitely in medical school, it's really important to set deadline. So I would like to introduce one concept. It's called Parkinson law. So Parkinson law states that work expand so as to fill the time available to complete certain tasks. So what does it mean is that, let's say you tell yourself you have 7 hours to finish a lecture. You'll definitely finish that lecture within 7 hours. But if you were to tell yourself you only have 3 hours to finish this lecture, you will squeeze everything within that 3 hours as well. So you see, if you can actually apply this Parkinson's law, you will actually free up a lot of your time. And that's when you would have time for other social life, other events and activities. So these are one of the things that you have to really remember, is to utilize your time correctly and nicely, set deadlines. And in order for you to set deadlines, you have to get rid of all the distraction and just be focused when you are doing your work. So I think these are a few things that I wish I knew before entering medical schools.
Thank you, Nelson. I think the tips given will help a lot of pre-medical students to have sufficient preparation before entering medical school. The last question I want to ask you, Nelson, is whether there is any advice you can share for pre-medical students and for us who currently studying in medical school.
All right, sure. I think I can categorize like advices in maybe two different forms. One is like for pre-medical students who are currently watching this M.I.N.O.R Talk. Though you guys haven't entered medical school, and I'll give another advice to people who are currently in medical school as well, or when you entered medical school. So I think a lot of pre-medical students, before they enter medical school, they always love to ask like, hey, what are the things that I need to pre-learn? What are the resources that I need to pre-learn? But I think my advice to the pre-medical students before entering medical school is really, you do not have to pre-learn. I know that your thirst for like medical knowledge is very huge, but trust me, you have 5 years ahead of you to really satisfy your thirst of medical knowledge. And medical school and even as a medical doctor, this is a lifelong learning. You will definitely be able to satisfy your thirst for knowledge throughout the whole journey. So you do not need to pre-learn before entering medical school. Instead, just enjoy your life, get a hobby that you like, get a hobby that you think can help you relieve stress and you think it is sustainable even after you enter medical schools. Because I think being able to find something you really love doing before and later on enter medical school will really help you in terms of your mental health as well in medical school when things get tough. And I think another advice would be, after you enter medical school, when you first enter medical school, you will realize that your previous study method, right, might not be the one that you think could be used in medical school, because it is true that in medical school we have to absorb a huge amount of content within a very short amount of time. So I think one advice is really take your time to really explore different methods, different study methods, and find that one specific methods that works the best for you in medical school as well. And also, second advice would be peer support. I think it's really important to have a group of friends that you can rely on, that you could support each other and help each other out when times get tough, because medical school is going to be a very challenging and tough journey. And I think lastly, it's also don't be too harsh on yourself, because all of the medical students, they love to fight. They want to achieve the best that they can, and often than not, they will not sacrifice sleep, sacrifice a lot of things just to complete their task. But just remember that in medical school, if you are always fighting to complete tasks, then you will never stop, because there's just endless tasks in medical school. So don't be too harsh on yourself. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to rest, because at the end of the day, you do not just want to be a competent doctor. That's not your end goal. You want to be a safe doctor. You want to be a doctor that is safe to your patients, that can provide the best patient-centered care to your patient, and perform the art of humanity. So for you to even do that, right, you first have to take care of yourself. And that's why it's really, really important to not be too harsh on yourself. Yeah, I think those are like my advices to everyone who is watching this M.I.N.O.R Talk right now.
Thank you, Nelson, for this insightful advice for me and the audience. So that marks the end of our interview for today. We hope that through this episode, we can give you some exposure to what medical school look like, as well as be well prepared before entering medical school. Once again, thank you, Nelson, for joining this sharing session. Thank you to the audience who is listening to this talk. If you like this episode, feel free to like and share. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.